How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Eric Erickson across the United States of America from right here in wintry Atlanta, Georgia. The phone number 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. I am going to play you an audio clip. I myself have not heard the audio clip to the boss of bosses, the king of kings, the lord of lords at WSB, my flagship station. It's congressional testimony. We should be safe. But we got this. We got the delay just in case. I was going to play this for Kobe. And I was like, you know what? We're going to listen to this one together. This just happened in the United States House of Representatives. Scott Bessent testifying. He is hands down, I think, one of my favorite people in Washington, D.C. We're going to listen to this together because I know what the punchline is. I don't know what the setup is.
The Biden administration had an extinction.
Sir, please be responsive to my question.
I am trying, sir, and this back and forth is just eating your time, that the Biden administration had an extinction policy for crypto.
This is when Trump came into office. I'm going to go to the next question because your answers on, Mr. Chairman, the answers have to be responsive if we're going to have a serious hearing here.
Well, the questions have to be serious.
Well, okay. All right, let's go forward. By the way, this is a man with no serious financial background talking to Scott Bessent, who was trained by George Soros in the financial markets. You may think Soros is evil, and he is, but he knows the financial markets, and he told Scott Bessent everything he knows.
Well, those are 100 dismissals of cases that the Trump administration came in and executed in their first weeks in office. Like that. All of a sudden, all these crypto cases went away. The SEC was dropping cases. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau dropping cases. And well, sir, look, you're on FSOC with all the heads of these agencies. This should be a serious question to you. Trust should be a serious question and a serious issue for the financial services industry, especially as the Secretary of the Treasury. Well, that's an important. No, this is my time. I haven't asked you any more questions. I haven't asked you any more questions.
It's the gentleman from Massachusetts.
I'm trying to get to my next question.
Oh, yeah. Well, Scott Bessent got the better of him, and he knew it. By the way, as an aside, this is why it would be a terrible, terrible mistake to bring Bill and Hillary Clinton into the House Oversight Committee. James Comer is the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, and he wants the Clintons to testify. He went on Fox News, and you should understand, Comer wants to be governor of Kentucky. The Commonwealth of Kentucky has its election next year. The current governor, I believe, is term limited, Andy Beshear. He wants to run for president anyway. Comer wants to haul the Clintons into the House Oversight Committee and essentially use it as his kickoff to run for governor of Kentucky.
I think it's going to be difficult for Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton to plead the fifth because they've been talking a big game for the last 24 hours that they want the American people to see. They want the American people to learn the truth and all that. Okay, well, if the truth is you can't answer the questions, you plead the fifth, then I think that's going to be a mark that will ban them from social gatherings and everything else, because most liberals in America are very concerned about getting the truth of the Epstein whole investigation. I don't think the truth's what they think it is, but they want anyone that spent a lot of time with Jeffrey Epstein to have to answer questions. And the Clintons, to my knowledge, have never really sat down and answered questions. They've never been interviewed about it, unlike President Trump, who gets asked daily, including today, including just a few hours ago, dozens of questions about Epstein. Bill Clinton's never, to my knowledge, nor has Hillary, ever answered any questions. Now's going to be their opportunity.
No, to me, this is...
It was Newsmax, not Fox News. Okay, so Congressman Comer claims that if Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton take the fifth before his committee, that they won't be invited to social gatherings anymore. That's the punishment. They'll be really? Let me just speak truthfully to you here. You may not like Bill Clinton, former president of the United States, or Hillary Clinton, but they are politically savvier than every Republican member of the House Oversight Committee, even in their old age. The Republicans on the House Oversight Committee have never been able to run a public show trial competently. And the reason is because they are so committed to the soundbite and so committed to the gotcha that they get tripped up in trying to make TV for Fox News and their constituents. John Dingell and Henry Waxman back in the day, these are old Democratic congressmen who ran the House Oversight Committee. They knew how to run a public witch hunt. They knew how to do the show trial. They knew how to do it. They were competent when they did it. And a lot of times it was just letting the witnesses speak. The Republicans aren't going to let the witnesses speak. And Waxman and Dingell would have never brought in people who were going to use the other side to their advantage. Here's what's going to happen. You bring Hillary and Bill into a public spectacle, every single news network in America is going to air it. And Comer's going to say, Mr. President, I want to know how many young women you molested on Jeffrey Epstein's island. Tell me the truth, Bill. And Bill Clinton will say, because the president of the United States has wrecked an economy that was great when I was president, I'm taking the fifth. I want to know the answer. I want to know, is this you in the picture? Tell me, is this you in the picture? Because you Republicans are wasting your time on conspiracy theories instead of the concerns of the American people like I did when I was president, I'm taking the fifth. Mrs. Clinton, you tell me about Benghazi, and you tell me about your husband with girls at Jeffrey Epstein. When did you know it, Hillary Clinton? Well, the economy worked better when Bill was president. We didn't have this mess when I was Secretary of State with Ukraine, and so I'm taking the Fifth Amendment. And then the Democrats are going to say, former President Clinton, when you were president, the unemployment rate was 3%. The budget of the United States was balanced. And we were the leader of the free world, going so far as to engage in Kosovo to save a genocidal tragedy that this president refuses to do in Ukraine. I would like your thoughts on that, please. And you may not like Bill Clinton, but he was a popular man. The Republicans tried to destroy him when he was president, and he kept getting the better of them. He's the primordial Donald Trump. Back in the day, they called him Slick Willie. They called Donald Trump Teflon Don. He was Slick Willie. And Hillary, she ran circles around the Republicans regularly in Senate and House committees. She did. You may not like her. I don't like her, but she ran circles around them. And now you got good old boy from Kentucky who wants to launch his gubernatorial campaign coming in. Well, I do declare, Bill Clinton, I want the answer. I want the answer from you on Jeffrey Epstein Island. And Bill, oh shucks. Well, you know what? I'm not going to humor you wasting my time. I'm going to take the Fifth Amendment, and you wasting the taxpayers' time when you could be solving problems for the tax. I declare, Bill, I want the answer. I want the answer now. How many young women did you abuse for Jeffrey Epstein? I'm going to take the Fifth Amendment on that while you're abusing the time of the American public right now. It's not going to go well for the Republicans. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel on this is a fast approaching train for the GOP. It always is. These guys always trip over their egos when they have these committees. They do not do public show trials well. James Comer has never done a show trial well in the United States House of Representatives. And when you talk privately to the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives, they agree that it's not going to go well. When you talk to the leadership of the Republican Party in the House of Representatives, they roll their eyes about Comer's repeated failures in the House Oversight Committee to provide gotcha moments that actually get anybody. And they're not going to get a politician as savvy and wily as Bill Clinton. And again, you don't have to like the guy to recognize that the political acumen of Bill Clinton, the political IQ of Bill Clinton is double the combined political IQ of all the Republicans in that room. The Republicans in that room are so interested in their sound bites and fundraising pitches for their constituents. They're going to be able to fundraise for themselves, and they're going to lose the message for the GOP nationally. Clinton knows how to turn a message against the Republicans. He pioneered political jiu-jitsu in the 1990s against the GOP, taking their strengths and making them weaknesses, taking his weakness and making it a strength. He had that bad run with Monica Lewinsky, and he still got reelected in 1996 against the GOP. And in 1998, after the government shut down and all that, guess what happened? The Republicans lost seats. George W. Bush got elected in the year 2000 by 153 votes in the state of Florida. And Al Gore refused to have Bill Clinton campaign with him. And to this day, it has gone down in history as one of the two biggest mistakes in modern American presidential political campaigns. The second was Hillary Clinton not taking Bill Clinton's advice to go campaign in Wisconsin and Erie, Pennsylvania in the last 2 weeks of the campaign. All of these major mistakes involve the savviness of Bill Clinton as a politician. And again, you don't have to like him. When I was growing up, he was the devil incarnate. I disagree with him so much politically, but I recognize his political acumen, and I recognize the mental midgets on the House Republican Oversight Committee panel are going to get eaten alive if they do this publicly with Bill and Hillary Clinton. It's just not going to go well. And we consider, he kept taking the Fifth Amendment. Well, you know what? You can't interpret that as an admission of guilt. We all do. Let's admit it. We all do. But when he uses it to score shots, and you're going to see some of the younger liberals in the House, they're going to be inclined to go after the Clintons as well. But what do you think they want to do? Do you think they more want to end Bill and Hillary Clinton or end the Republicans? Which side do you think the AOCs of the world are going to go on? The savaging of the Clintons? I mean, they blame the Russians for stealing the election? I mean, I can hear it now, AOC's question to Hillary Clinton. Senator Clinton, do you believe, just as the Russians stole the election in 2016, that the Russians are now involved in the Jeffrey Epstein saga to smear your family? Do you believe the Russians covered up Donald Trump's involvement in the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, Ms. Clinton? I mean, how do you win when the person gets to take the Fifth Amendment and laugh at you? You don't. So do it behind closed doors. Ask him the questions. Let both sides spin. But you do this as a public show trial. The Republicans on the House Oversight Committee have never, ever done a good job with one of their Oversight Committee investigations. They always fall flat. And by the way, it doesn't help James Comer that you've got Donald Trump out there saying, I just wish they wouldn't do this. I think Bill and Hillary Clinton, that they're past their prime and they're retired and we should leave them alone. It's terrible what people are doing. This is Donald Trump yesterday said it's terrible what they're doing to Bill and Hillary Clinton. That's Donald Trump saying that, signaling, guys, you're insane for trying to do a show trial against two master politicians. They're going to do everything they can to trap them, bait them into a trap. but the master politicians are going to run circles around them in that hearing, and you can see it coming from a mile away. And again, even the Republican leaders in the House of Representatives think this is a bad idea, but they can't dissuade Comer from trying to do it because he wants to start his political renaissance in Kentucky with a show trial of Bill and Hillary Clinton. You want to know something wild? I have a listener out in Arizona who turned 79 today. Now, that's not wild, having a listener turn 79 today. It's just he was vice president of the United States from 1989 to 1992 and is younger than both the sitting president of the United States and the former president of the United States, despite having been vice president of the United States in 1989. Happy birthday, Dan Quell. My best to you and your family. Now, I got to play you a clip right here from Marco Rubio, who has been speaking at the State Department on the issue of critical minerals, among other things, but also talking about Iran. This is a snippet of the Secretary of State from a while ago.
Matt, and location of Friday's talks with Iran, and clarify, given that Iran refuses to negotiate its missile program and insists on a right to enrich uranium, is the U.S. open to a compromise if that means reaching a deal to avoid military action? And separately, if I may, how exactly do these negotiations advance President Trump's repeated pledges to help the Iranian protesters, many of whom are likely to see these nuclear talks as legitimizing the very government that violently massacred its own people?
Well, let me first say, just on the logistics, at the end, let me back up and say, from a big picture perspective, I think it's pretty clear right now, President Trump is willing to talk to and meet with and engage with anyone in the world. I mean, that we don't view meetings as a concession. We don't view meetings as even legitimization. It is our willingness to sit and listen and talk to anyone, any adversary, any ally, obviously, but anyone around the world. And so the president's always been open to that. He showed that in the first administration, and he's showing it again now. And so I think if there's an opportunity to engage directly with counterparts in the Iranian regime, the United States would be open to that, and that's what we're open to. We thought we had an established forum that had been agreed to in Turkey. It was put together by a number of partners who wanted to attend and be a part of it. I saw conflicting reports yesterday from the Iranian side saying that they had not agreed to that. So that's still being worked through. At the end of the day, the United States is prepared to engage and has always been prepared to engage with Iran. As far as the topic of those discussions and what the agenda needs to be, look, I think in order for talks to actually lead to something meaningful, they will have to include certain things. And that includes the range of their ballistic missiles.
Which they don't want to do, among other things. Also, the treatment of their citizens, who new video has come up of Iranian troops just running people over in vehicles to kill them. Awful stuff. Now, I got to tell you about Old Glory Bank. They are working on a DS pack and going to be publicly traded on NASDAQ, which I just think is great. It's a sign of their great growth as a company. They're one of the fastest growing banks in the country. I became a customer of theirs about 2 years ago before they were an advertiser. I sought them out as an advertiser. I have a checking account and a savings account with them, and you can too. I've got a no-fee checking and no-fee savings. You can get the premium accounts if you want. And if you're active duty military, they'll waive fees for you. oldglorybank.com/Eric, oldglorybank.com/ERICK. If you're a business, they're going to protect your privacy. They're not going to debank you if you suddenly fall out of the good graces of the political left in this country. It's one of the reasons Old Glory Bank was started, was to protect people from the debanking trends. And now with Trump in office, they don't have to worry so much about that, but they're standing strong to help businesses and individuals be strong. You can get custodial accounts for your kids, do mortgages, CDs, full service bank, even deposit cash, though they're an online bank. oldglorybank.com/Eric. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome. Okay, y'all, I gotta play you this. This is a new ad that is going to debut during the Super Bowl. You've heard me mention Claude. Claude is one of the latest AI startups out there, and Claude, I have to tell you, is the first time I've really thought, oh yeah, I see the benefit of AI. And they're going to advertise in the Super Bowl, which to me sounds almost like the dot-com bubble of the late 90s, but those were also some of the most creative ads. This is the ad for Claude AI, which is a paid AI chatbot. ChatGPT and several of the others have said they're going to start putting advertisements in their AI. And this is Claude's ad that signals you're not going to get advertising in the Claude A. So they're going to do an advertisement to say there's going to be no advertising in Claude. This is the ad. Oh, hang on. I rerouted my monitor so I could hear it without it going out to y'all during commercial break. So let me reroute. This is I screwed this up, the setup, didn't I? Here we go. This is the ad from Claude.
How do I communicate better with my mom?
Great question. Improved communication with your mom can bring you closer. Here are some techniques you can try. Start by listening. Really hear what she's trying to say underneath her words. Build conversation from points of agreement. Find a connection through shared activity, perhaps a nature walk. Or if the relationship can't be fixed, find emotional connection with other older women on Golden Encounters, the mature dating site that connects sensitive cubs with roaring cougars.
What?
Would you like me to create your profile?
And it's with ads are coming to AI, but not to Claude. That may be the best ad I've seen so far coming out for the Super Bowl. All right, can we talk about Republican sanity for just a minute? I didn't get to this story yesterday because I wanted to dig a little further, and I need you all to know this story in the Washington Post, somewhat ironic as today the big story are layoffs at the Washington Post. It's not a big story for you and me. It's just a big story for members of the press. But there is a story in the Washington Post that's a disturbing story, and it's one we need some Republican sanity on. If you read my morning piece, and you can subscribe by texting Eric to 33777, click the first link. The story is about John. John his last name is not known. They don't give it because he's a little apprehensive about what happened. He's an American citizen, but he's actually a British citizen who loved the U.S. so much he became an American citizen, and he's worried about being further targeted by Homeland Security. John's crime, to the extent it was a crime, is he read a story in the Washington Post we talked about on this program when it happened, about a man the Washington Post's name is H. H is an Afghan national who fled the Taliban to the United States after Biden withdrew from Afghanistan. He is allowed into this country. He is not a terrorist, has no known ties to terrorism, is not a threat that anybody knows of. But the Trump administration decided to deport him back to Afghanistan. He had worked for an American nonprofit, was getting a college degree from American University, which had set up a campus in Kabul. And the American said because he wasn't an American agent, he's not under threat. He said, if I go back because I work for this American nonprofit, they're going to kill me. And so the Trump administration argued in court. The attorney Joseph Dernbach of the Department of Homeland Security made the argument in court that Afghanistan is a safe country and therefore this guy's life would not be in jeopardy. Afghanistan is a safe country because the Taliban is in charge. That was literally the argument. So John, this American citizen, wrote a letter, and I can read you the text of his letter to Mr. Dernbach, who, if you put in Joseph Dernbach on Google, his email address comes right up. It's like the second or third Google link. I did it myself. Member of the Florida Bar, got an address at the Department of Homeland Security. It was very easy for me to find, and that's what John says he did. He put in Joseph Dernbach on Google. Number 3 was his email address, and he shot him an email. Dear Mr. Dernbach, don't play Russian roulette with H's life. Err on the side of caution. There's a reason the U.S. government, along with many other governments, don't recognize the Taliban. Apply principles of common decency and sense. Well, 6 hours after John sent this email to Joseph Dernbach at the Department of Homeland Security, Google sent him a notice that it had received legal process from a law enforcement agency compelling the release of information related to his Google account. Within 6 hours of John emailing this letter, and the Washington Post confirms that's the text of the letter, the Department of Homeland Security sent Google a demand for this man's private information. Google notified him from a no-reply address and directed him to request a copy from Homeland Security of the subpoena, but didn't provide a phone number. He had to reach the agency. He spent hours going to extensions that don't exist and people who didn't care, and he never was able to get a copy. Eventually, the Washington Post heard about it and got onto it, and it turns out that the Department of Homeland Security, after this man's innocuous email, asked for, dating back to September 1st of last year, the day, time, and duration of all his online sessions, every associated IP and physical address, a list of every service he used, any alternative usernames and email addresses, the date he opened his account, his credit card, driver's license, and his social security number. They also paid him a visit at his home to inquire about the threatening nature of his email. Tricia McLaughlin, the Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security for PR, said it was part of a criminal investigation, but wouldn't say who was being investigated criminally. What the Department of Homeland Security did, what the lawyer at the Department of Homeland Security did, was filed an administrative warrant. You can't get his emails. You can't get his conversations with others without a judicial warrant, but you could get his driver's license, his social security number, his IP address, all of his accounts, all of his alias email accounts, all of that with this non-judicial warrant, with this administrative warrant. And they did for the mere act of an American citizen emailing the Department of Homeland Security. Now you're thinking, John's a progressive. He got what he deserved. Except here's the problem. I can't play you the audio because it's so profane, but George Conway did a Kellyanne Conway's ex-husband, who's running for Congress now, did a podcast interview with the Bulwark Kids and said that we need a new Reconstruction era. Lawyers are going to have to figure out mechanisms that prevent some of this stuff from ever happening again, including electing a crazy president. The Bulwark crowd wants a American Nuremberg. They want Nuremberg-style trials for Trump administration officials and the people who elevated Donald Trump. They want this stuff. The left is openly calling for like South African-style truth and reconciliation commissions, investigations. They're going to use the administrative warrant. But right now in Washington, D.C., Democrats say they want administrative warrant reform because of ICE. Now, I'm not recommending we shut down ICE administrative warrants. We shouldn't do that for deportations. But while Democrats are willing to work with us right now, it seems like Republicans would be very smart if they themselves reached out and said, hey, we're willing to curtail these abuses and these bullies within the government, because it's not just the Department of Homeland Security. It's other groups within the administration do it as well. And get rid of the ability of them to do this sort of stuff to American citizens. This is going to be turned on you Republicans by the Democrats. They're openly saying they want a reconstruction of this country. They want truth and reconciliation commissions. They want Trump supporters to be held accountable for putting Donald Trump back in office after January 6th. It's inexcusable to them. You can protect yourself right now by having Congress pass laws. This is a law Congress should pass. It's not an executive reform because the next president can undo it. You would be nuts if you did not do this. This story is just wild that an American citizen was subjected to an administrative warrant by the Department of Homeland Security for an email to lawyer Joseph Dernbach at the Department of Homeland Security, who may now file an administrative warrant on me for mentioning his name. I linked to him in my Substack with his email address to show how easy it was. It was literally the third link in Google. You put in his name, you get to Joseph Michael Dernbach of the Florida Bar with his mailing address and email at the mailing address of the Department of Homeland Security, not his private stuff. I wouldn't link to it if it was private. It's his public information for the Department of Homeland Security. It was that easy for this guy to email a complaint to this lawyer, and what happened? The Department of Homeland Security came for him, an American citizen targeted by the Department of Homeland Security. Now, you do that with the Trump administration and some bully within the Trump administration when it's not Donald Trump's MO to do that to American citizens, maybe to illegal aliens, but not to citizens, maybe to James Comey, but not other people. Now you put in a Democrat who believes that we need a Nuremberg-style trial of not just Trump administration officials, but their supporters. Good luck protecting yourself from harassment by the real deep state that is not going to be disarmed by Donald Trump. Trump's not focused on that right now. Republicans, you would be nuts if you did not right now start legislation to curtail the abuse of administrative warrants, because this is an abuse against an American citizen. Personally, I think the Inspector General of the Department of Homeland Security needs to figure out who asked for the affidavit and fire whoever did it, whether it was the lawyer or someone else. It's an abuse. Targeting an American citizen for merely objecting to something the government was doing. Every single one of you has the right to do that. You do not deserve abuse. I don't care how far left or far right you are. I don't care whether I agree with you or not. You do not deserve that abuse. And this happened to this American citizen because he objected to something Homeland Security was doing. And Republicans control the House and the Senate. They have Democrats willing to address administrative warrant reform. They should do it. Protect ICE. Protect the ability to deport. But do this right now before they turn it on you, because they will. Now, there is some breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. The Supreme Court of the United States of America has refused to block California's new congressional districts that favor the Democrats. This is from the Mercury News, writing that the Supreme Court will allow it to go forward. This is actually really big news because the Trump administration was claiming California used race-based data to draw its districts, but the data was not per se race-based. It was based on the partisanship of non-white voters. And if the Supreme Court of the United States is willing to allow California's lines to go forward when they openly used race as a proxy for partisanship, which they did do, then that probably means Louisiana's congressional district is going to be fine. Or Louisiana's case on its redistricting is going to be fine. And the Supreme Court is going to say, even if it looks like it's race, but it's actually partisanship, you can redistrict based on partisanship. That, my friends, is a big deal for the right, because that then will suggest that Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, maybe even Georgia can engage in the redistricting games that everybody else is engaged in right now. The fact that they're doing this is kind of a big sign in my mind that they may side with Louisiana in this case, and that would be big. But this is a defeat for the GOP, and I got to tell you, the GOP right now still has a slight edge in the redistricting wars, despite California and what Maryland is doing. Maryland wants to change lines. Indiana may now ultimately decide to change lines themselves. But y'all, this would actually be a big win for conservative states, Republican states, red states that want to redistrict and say, we're not looking, black voters vote Democrat. We're looking at the Democratic vote in this area. It just happens to be a majority black area, but it's a majority Democrat area. They could do it. I mean, that is what California did. Let's be honest about it. But also, let's be honest about this. We're in the redistricting wars right now because Donald Trump's campaign team decided that it was a great idea. And it's a fight they may not be able to win. Virginia is now looking at also doing it. It's stymied by the Virginia courts, and the Virginia legislature is trying to get around the Virginia courts, which they may be able to do. It's just remarkable to see the GOP go into this fight and not be able to successfully win it. And Texas has now diluted so much of its Republican seats that now some of its Republican seats that it thought would be safe this coming November may flip to the Democrats if they're not careful. But, I would just go back to what I said earlier, though. The generic ballot right now is only +5 for the Democrats. In 2018, it was +8.4. If the Democratic insanity on immigration and deportation continues along with all the other insanity on the Democratic Party side, the Republicans, this may be the high watermark in the generic ballot for the Democrats, and the Republicans could actually turn out doing okay, still lose the House, but not by much in November, given the trend lines right now for the Democrats. Happening now, courtesy of NBC News, this is the President of the United States being asked about Iran now that the talks have collapsed.
Should the supreme leader in Iran be worried right now?
I would say he should be very worried, yeah. He should be. As you know, they're negotiating with us.
I know they are, but the protest...
He should be very worried right now, but then says they're still negotiating with us. It does not appear they are continuing to negotiate with us, the president. of the United States saying the Ayatollah should be very worried. Our armada is in place in Iran to take action if the president wants to take action. And I do have to think that this administration doesn't want to go down in history as the second coming of Barack Obama on handling Iran, where Obama pulled off his punches and propped up the regime. There are legitimate concerns about destabilization of the regime, but I very much think that the Iranian regime at this point, there's enough support among our Muslim partners and the Israelis to wind this down. Trump has suggested that action may be coming, which would be a good thing. Now, here's the thing. There's the other news out beyond this news of Iran that the Supreme Court is allowing California's redistricting to take place, and that may be good news for Louisiana. Remember, Louisiana argued about being forced into redistricting by a lower court and being forced to draw more minority-majority districts. It didn't want to and went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court threw the case back and told them to re-argue it this year. We still haven't got the results of that case. It should come any moment. The question is, does the Louisiana decision come before the tariff decision? Lots of people trying to figure out what the Supreme Court is doing on tariffs because the decision has not come, and no one seems to know when the decision is coming. But the Supreme Court marches to the beat of its own drummer. It has its own clock for how it handles things. It's in no rush to please anybody. It's going to draft its decisions and take the time it needs to get the decision it thinks is right. So your pressure campaign on life tenured justices doesn't tend to work well. What does work well is the Eden Pure Thunderstorm, and you can get 3 of them and save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com with the discount code ERIC3, ERICK3 at EdenPureDeals.com. Now, it's an air purifier, so it traps dust and pollen, it traps pet dander, all of that stuff it traps, and it's filterless. You don't need a filter subscription. But where it shines is odor elimination. It generates ozone, and ozone gets to the source of the odors and wipes them out. It's like odor bleach. It is smoke odors, litter box odors, dirty diaper odors, cooking in the kitchen odors, musty basement odors. It wipes out those odors and leaves your house smelling fresh, or your rental car or your hotel room or wherever you need it. I got to be in a hotel tonight. I got one in my travel bag. And I hope I don't need it, but just in case, because it's small, it's portable. You get 3 of them and you save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code ERIC3, ERICK3. EdenPureDeals.com. They've got a money-back guarantee if they don't work, but they will. Mine does. I use it. You can use yours. EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code ERIC3. Talk to you guys tomorrow.